involved with the keyboards, and this is what happened. I'll do it again. Huh. Okay. My ecstasy, I done met a girl and she's just for me. I'm not one of a little romance. All I had was once a dance. I'm so in love. I'm in love and I know it's right. Hey, hey. I'm so in love. I'm in love and I know it's right. Hey, yeah. I'll wait till the evening comes. Gonna meet my lady, catch the setting sun. When she's near me, I drift away. I feel so happy now. I've got to say, hey, I'm so in love. I'm in love and I know it's right. I'm so in love. I'm in love and I know. I'm in love, yeah, 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 la 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 la. Oh yeah. So in love, I'm in love and I know it's right. I'm so in love, I'm in love and I know it's right. Hey. How to take this emotion? I say it's only devotion, and I love shine like them heaven stars. When we are together, babe, that's where we are. I'm so in love. I'm in love and I know it's right. Hey, yeah, 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 I'm so in love. I'm in love and I know it's right. I'm so in love. I'm in love and I know it's right. Yeah. I'm so I'm in love and I know it's right. And the crowd goes wild. Nobody claps. Come on, you guys. Oh, what do you want me to like shrivel up and like, oh, nobody likes me. Oh, no, God, all right. That's all right. I hope you like it. I wrote that. It was a slow little love song, and then I sped it up with the keyboards, and it became this kind of dancey thing, you know what I mean? So anyway, I guess I'm entertaining for a few minutes until we start this thing we're doing. I'm Billy Bensing. I've been living here forever, since 1984. You might have seen me playing around town. Anyway, what do you want to hear? Neil Young, James Taylor, Cat Stevens, originals? What do you think? Cat Stevens, I can do that. I love Cat Stevens, so how about I listen to the... Or Wild World, what do you want to hear? Wild World, I got a little band on the Wild World, actually, you know. Well, that's a little bit dramatic for right now. Let's see, I'll just do Wild. What Michael's like out in the back going, what do you want, Michael? Another song? You do Heart of Gold, yeah? You want me to do Heart of Gold? Well, they want Cat Stevens. All right, we'll do Cat Stevens, then we'll do a Heart of Gold if I got time, because he's craving Heart of Gold. I know he is, you know. Here we go. Let's do a little Cat Stevens here, right? Y'all got to sing along back there, all right? Hit it. La 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 la. Na 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 na. everything to you. You say you wanna start something new. It's breaking my heart that you're leaving. Baby, I'm grieving. If you wanna leave, take good care. Hope you got a lot of nice things to wear. A lot of nice things to buy out there. Oh, there's a wide world. Hard to get by just upon a smile. Oh, baby, it's a wild world. I always remember you like a child, girl. I've seen a lot of what the world can do. It's breaking my heart in two. I never wanna see a side, girl. And don't be bad, girl. If you wanna leave, take good care. Hope you got a lot of nice things to wear. A lot of nice things to buy out there. Ooh, there's a wide world. I had to get by just upon a smile. Oh, there's a wide world. I always remember you like a child, girl. Baby, I love you. Oh, and if you wanna leave, take good care. You got a lot of nice friends out there. A lot of nice things to buy out there. Ooh, there's a wide world. I had to get by just upon a smile. World. I always remember you like a child, girl. Oh, there's a wide world. And I get by just upon a smile. Ooh, there's a wide world. I always remember you like a child, girl. Huh. Yeah! All right, gotta make Michael happy. I gotta play him Neil Young here. And then, all right, here we go. Y'all ready? All right, come on, groove along, everybody. I think I drove to California in a VW bus listening to this on an 8-track. But this is not the bloody song. Hold on, I screwed it up here. Whoops. Wrong CD. I did all the music on this, but I put it on CD. So here we go. Hit it. I wanna live, I wanna give. I've been a mine for heart of gold. It's the expressions I never give. They keep me searching for a high gold. Yeah. And I'm getting older. Keep me searching for a high gold. Thought I'd found one, but I'm getting old. I've been a Hollywood, I've been a redwood. I cried. such a fine line. Keeps me searching for a high to go now. And I'm getting old. Keep me searching for a high to go. And I'm getting old. Searching for a high to go now, now. All right. Should I introduce Michael?
I'll have you back in like 20 minutes or so.
He's throwing me off the stage, and I'll come back.
I have the Shepherd Crook. So, how's everyone doing today? Great. So, my name is Michael DiMartino, and I am the producer of Golden Road Productions. And for the last 2.5 years, I've been deeply committed to using broadcast technology, both on radio, television, on the internet, to try to build some bridges throughout the bioregion of the Sacramento River watershed. I will say, as many great organizations doing incredible work here, that it's really been a challenge to try to get the attention, the commitment, and the bandwidth from people to actually show up and to spend time working outside of the area to help build bridges between various organizations. But needless to say, for the last 3 years, we have produced Golden Road TV and radio. We've done over 60 live 2-hour broadcasts in several counties. So when you watch Golden Road TV, where we're broadcasting right now, we also broadcast in Siskiyou County, which is up at Mount Shasta. We broadcast in Shasta County, which is, of course, Redding. We broadcast in Butte County, which is Chico. We broadcast here in Nevada County. We also broadcast after the fact in Calaveras County, Amador County, and also in Sacramento County. And the reason we do this, because there's so many voices and there's so much information that people don't get in corporate media. So we've been greatly committed over the last 3 years to highlight a lot of the organizations and people that are doing great work in our community. And about a year ago, we changed kind of gears and really just started focusing on, instead of just showcasing the region, we started focusing on the idea of community resilience. Which, of course, how many of you know what community resilience is? Have you heard the term? A few people have. Great. So it's kind of a new term for a lot of people. Back in the day, we used to say sustainability. And really, we live in such a world right now with climate change and all the things that are happening that sustainability is not just enough anymore. We actually have to get to the level of being regenerative. And that means working with water remediation, soil remediation, working around areas of emergency preparedness. And strangely enough, a few months ago, we did a broadcast from the Chico Women's Club where we brought in members of the Mechoopda tribe to talk about the mismanagement of the forest by the United States government, and that they should look at the way that indigenous people have done things for thousands of years. We talked about a lot of important topics. We had members of CAL FIRE in there talking to people how to protect their homes. And unfortunately, a few months later, we have the Paradise Fire. So I bring this up because it's a very sad and unfortunate occurrence, but I think it's one that's relative to the content that we're trying to reach people with. This isn't just information, more information saturation, or media just, look at my kitty, he's so cute, or hey, we're at the beach, because again, there's so much media out there that we've been really vetting and completely focusing on this idea of community resilience. So we have a great lineup of speakers today. But before I bring them up, I just want to give a little bit of background of why we're here, what we do. And then after this, that all the media that we've done, 3 years of it, over 250 hours of interviews of media of people in our region that are making a difference and are working with community building. So it's been quite a feat. And this has all been done on a volunteer basis. No one is getting paid to do this work. So a year ago, we started doing the community resilience work. We really hit a nerve with people. We just did a broadcast about water up in Mount Shasta, because right now, how many of you know Crystal Geyser is tapping the headwaters of the Sacramento River? Any of you know that? A few people do know that, right? Again, it's not something you're going to read in the Union newspaper in our regular media. And as much as we appreciate the media that's there, we're actually here as symbolic token of effort by the community to take responsibility for the health of ourselves, for the health of our communities, and to make real change. This whole 2-hour broadcast today is not meant to be just an infomercial. It's meant to bring more awareness to people, to reach people, and to, more importantly, even build bridges of what can we do to make changes. So today's focus is water and health. So we're going to have speakers from Kyle Leach from Sierra Streams. He's going to be talking about what they do around stream remediation and heavy metals from the legacy of mining. That's why I wanted you to play Heart of Gold, because beautiful song, but we think about the gold mining legacy, not so beautiful. So a great part of our history, but nonetheless a very toxic legacy that's been left behind. I also very honored, and thank you so much. We have Dr. Michelle Perreault here, who is really one of the foremost voices I've heard around the whole issue of health, Roundup, and more particularly glyphosate. I attended the Roundup rally at the Capitol about a year ago, and I was amazed there was hardly any media there at this statewide event. Like, let's ban Roundup, we can do it, let's have non-toxic communities. So once again, I was kind of horrified at maybe the lack of turnout. So what I've come to learn, it's not how many people show up, it's what we do with the people who do show up, and everybody finding something that they can do, some small part, some role you can play to help make changes. We also have Michael and Yara Passner here, who recently started Safe Ditches. They've been heavily committed to bringing more awareness about the use of heavy metals, algicides, and also Roundup on the NID ditches, which is about 450 miles of ditches that's sprayed heavily. And of course, any permacultural snows, and I see Cathay Fish, hi Cathay's here. Any permacultural snow, this gets into the water table. It affects people's life. It affects livestock. It affects the organic farms in Nevada County. Again, these are not issues of convenience. These are issues we're talking about because they affect all of us. And hopefully all the issues we're talking about, we're doing it in a way that we don't want to politicize this. It's not about the left or the right or the middle or conservatives or liberals. We're talking about issues of community health and well-being. We're talking about the health of our children and the future safety of our planet that we live on. So I'm going to ask people, since we are broadcasting live to NCTV, also Golden Road TV, Radio, Facebook. We also broadcast to KVMR, Facebook. We've really created this whole media channel. If and when you do get up and out, you'll notice there's a camera at the back of the room if you can duck. But let's get right into it. We have some great speakers today. I'm really excited. And we're going to start with a gentleman from Sierra Streams Institute. How many of you have heard of Sierra Streams? Great, great. And I know there's also people from out of the county, and that's really why we're taking a bioregional approach to these issues, because whether you live in Vallejo or East Bay, where, by the way, right now, the current administration is bringing in coal trains from the Midwest of unprotected, uncovered trains of coal and dumping them literally because the coal industry is a dead industry, right? Hasn't been happening for a long time, but in the current administration, let's bring back coal. Let's make America toxic again, or great again, excuse me. Freudian slip. Again, we're not here to politicize anything, but someone I work with just spent a couple days videotaping the coal that's being dumped in parking lots along the East Bay, along the waterfront, with orange cones around it saying, you know, do not enter, waiting for ships to arrive to take it to southern, you know, we don't say third world countries anymore because the world's changing. So taking it to countries that are trying to expand their, have greater energy needs and leaving it exposed to the communities there. I mean, this is horrific. So we do this show as a way to say, hey, red alert on planet Earth. Let's not be apocalyptic and let's not be alarmist, but let's wake up. Let's cure ourselves of this cognitive decline and wake up and make a difference. Let's make some changes. You guys ready? You guys ready to make some changes? I know everybody in this room is an active role of making that happen. So I'm going to start with introducing our first speaker, Kyle. And again, he works with Sierra Streams, and they do so much work. And again, I praise all the organizations that are here. And by doing this show, again, we're trying to build bridges and get the messaging out. But Kyle Leach works with Sierra Streams, and his focus today is really about heavy metals, stream remediation, and the legacy of mining. So a nice round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Hi, everyone. Nice to see all of you, and thanks for having me here. Like you said, I'm Kyle Leach. I'm a registered geologist in California, and I work for Sierra Streams Institute. I'll talk a little bit about Sierra Streams and then about the mining toxins and the types of toxins that there are and how we are working to clean them up and keep them out of the streams. So Sierra Streams Institute's been around for, I think, 18 or 19 years. It was organized around some community people that got together when they were rebuilding the Pine Street Bridge, and they were concerned about digging in the creek and sedimentation and what kind of toxins might be released from that. And so it kind of has grown over the years, and we have about 13 or 14 permanent employees and over 30 volunteers who do river monitoring all over the Deer Creek Basin, and we've recently expanded to the Bear River Basin as well. So we have over 30 sites that are monitored every month for river stream quality and things like that. So we are really into citizen science, where we're getting volunteers and to do actual scientific work, collecting data, bringing it back, and sharing it with in a format that people can use and share with the community. So the work that I do, I came on about 7 years ago after working in the private sector for many years, and my focus has been on cleaning up abandoned mines, and especially in this area. We've gotten some good grants from the US EPA and the Sierra Fund, or the Sierra Nevada Conservancy. And so we've worked on quite a few mines. One is the Stiles Mill, which is just below the Pine Street Bridge on the far side from town, and then also the Providence Mine, which is one of the biggest mines in the area. So types of toxins that you get in these mines are basically, what happens is the gold was put into the rocks many, millions of years ago, but it was like a liquid injection of hot liquids into the rock, and the gold and the quartz tend to come together, and that's what they're going after when they're mining. But that liquid, the same liquid that brought in the gold, also had other metals, many different kinds of metals, and the most toxic ones that we find around here are lead and arsenic in general, some cadmium and a few other metals, but generally it's usually mercury, arsenic, and lead that you're looking for. The mercury was introduced later in the process of recovering the gold. So it was actually mined over in the Coast Range and brought over here to amalgamate the gold and aid in the recovery of the gold. So the mercury I'll talk about in a second, but the other metals tend to be fairly stable when they're underground, but once they get brought up to the surface, they get oxidized, they break down, the metals are released, and they tend to erode mostly as particles into the soil, into the creeks. And that's how you get the metal contamination in the creeks. Not so much solubility. In other kinds of mining, like for example, copper mining, you have a lot more acidic conditions, and then there's a lot more soluble metals that can go into the water. But we don't really have copper mines around here. There's some down in the foothills, that not too big, but there's some in Spenceville and in that area. So basically the assessments and cleanups of the metals that I'm looking at, the real focus is to stop the erosion of that those particles into the creek, and also to mainly the other reason we're getting EPA grants to protect human health. So we're trying to keep people from being exposed to the metals, and then trying to keep it out of the creek. So we've done quite a bit of water monitoring. It's kind of expensive to do metals testing of the water, so we don't do a lot of that, but associated with my projects, we will test for the metals in the water upstream, right adjacent to our sites, and then downstream. And what we found is generally when the water is clear, you don't get much metal. The metals are almost non-existent in the water, but when it's cloudy and stormy times, then you're seeing a lot of metals in the water, sometimes over the, well over the drinking water standards. So takeaway from that is don't drink the water, don't swim in the water when it's cold and freezing and flooding anyway. So not too many people doing that. But the more hazardous thing would be mercury. And the mercury that was put into used in the mining process has eroded into the creek over the years, and it was lost during the process. So over 10 million pounds of mercury has been lost into the Sierra Nevada area, and that mercury turns into methyl mercury by a complicated process I won't go into, and it gets into the food chain. It gets biomagnified each time it goes up the food chain. So the larger fish, especially things like bass in the reservoirs, are the things that have the most mercury in them that people should avoid eating. So there's fishing advisories for people not to eat the fish. So that's probably the worst mining toxin exposure route, is by people eating fish. And unfortunately, the people, like the Hmong people who go out and subsistence fish, they're not really reading those advisories. So it's kind of hard to get to the people that are really the most affected. But for example, the Sierra Fund is doing a lot of work on that, on doing surveys of anglers and getting the word out and getting postings and things like that. So I could go on in all kinds of directions, but I think I'll open it up to questions anyone has on any topic like that. What do you think Michael wants me to talk more about?
Yeah, so we have a mic here. It's nice if people do have questions or things you want to maybe ask while we have Ben here. If you want, just step up to the mic.
Thank you. I always learn so much every time I come here. I have been measuring people in Chico area with their heavy metal. Mm-hmm. So I was really shocked how many people have mercury, cadmium, and lead. One kid has lead. I thought it was from the school, but now we may have a reason for from the water contamination. So how much water has been cleared, mediated so far? Are they still contaminated, or we're achieving certain level of decrease now?
Well, I could tell you about a few. One of the main sources that I know of metals getting into the creeks are drain tunnels from old mines, and a couple of those have been remediated. The one is the Magenta drain that comes out of the Empire mine, and that's a really good success story. There was a lot of toxins that were going right through Memorial Park in Grass Valley, where people were playing in it. They didn't even know that it was toxic, and they found out, and they closed off the creek for a while, and then they started rerouting that water through some ponds. It's a passive remediation system where the water goes over limestone rocks and the metals drop out, and they have plants that absorb metals, and it's you can see it along the road that goes up. I forgot the name of the road that goes up towards Empire Road. Yeah, up by just below the Empire mine. There's some big ponds there, so that's a success story. There's also the North Star mine in Grass Valley too. But the work I do is mainly keeping erosion of those materials into the creek. And so we have done that on several sites in Deer Creek, and I know that there's a lot of work that's being done at Malakoff Diggings for the mercury that's coming in there. And it's an ongoing process. So I think if you looked at the amount of money that was taken out of the gold rush, it would probably cost all that money to clean it all up the best. So
yes. Have you ever studied any kind of bacteria that cleans up heavy metals?
Bacteria, not so much. I know that they are kind of causing the problem with mercury. So, bacteria tend to make the metals more available into the food chain. So I don't really know how we've done stuff with plants and trying to get plants to absorb the metals. And and we've learned a lot about it. We haven't had a lot of success, but we do have some leads, and people are doing studies on it and stuff like that too.
I see. Are you helping like other mining sites like Happy Camp, along the Klamath River? Are you guys connected? Any organizations doing cleanup there?
I'm not too aware of the details up there. I know I've been following taking the dams out up on the Klamath River and those issues. But I don't know too much about mining cleanups up there.
So we may have to
I know
get
about
them.
There's one really bad mine up in north of Reading, the Iron Mountain. Has the lowest pH ever recorded in nature, and there's actually bacteria living in that, and that's an old copper mine where a lot of metals are leaching out, and there's a big cleanup that's gone on there too. So it's a big Superfund site.
Thank you.
So I do know about that. So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay, sure.
Has any heavy metal testing ever been done on Bitney Springs water?
Not that I know of. I think it is tested by the county, and I've never heard of it being really bad. I don't know the specific results.
But you do think it's tested? Because I've heard nobody tests the water.
I don't know. I think that the county environmental health may have information on that. I've heard that they've put up warnings before and people tear them down because if people
Yeah, I
want to
can
drink that
believe that.
water. So I personally don't drink it because I have not seen results.
Right. Yeah.
So-
I'm concerned because I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my other question is that I do regular heavy metal testing with hair analysis, and I noticed an increase in arsenic when I moved to my current location, which is well water. And
That's a good point. Yeah.
I switched over to RO, and the arsenic levels dropped. So I asked my landlords about it, and they told me that the well water was tested by the county and rated as just fine. So how did that happen?
That's a good point. Arsenic in groundwater is an issue in this area. It's not everywhere, but certain mines, certain locations, there is arsenic. It's naturally occurring usually, but it's usually in the areas where mining has occurred because the arsenic was concentrated during the mining process. So what I've seen is that people, particularly around the Banner Lava Cap mine up on Banner Mountain, there's higher arsenic there. And so when you do drill a well, it's required to be tested by the county for arsenic and other metals. And if it's elevated, then they require you to do some kind of treatment, which is a pretty simple process, but it costs money, to have that treatment. Reverse osmosis, like you said, is one.
So, but how could I show up with arsenic when the county had given it a pass and said the water was fine?
It's possible that you were getting small amounts and that it just accumulates in your body. One of the things about arsenic is it's toxic and it accumulates at very, very low concentrations. And the water quality standard for drinking water for arsenic is 5 parts per billion. It was lowered from 50 about 10 years ago, something like that.
Only 10 years ago.
And it really, when they look at the health, it should be lower than 5. But
Yes.
the problem is that the technology is not there to clean it out of the water. It would be prohibitively expensive for municipalities to get that much.
So they don't
arsenic
lower
out.
the standards because it would be expensive to fix it. Okay.
Yeah. That's the world we live in.
Yeah. And just riding on her question, have you ever heard of using fungi for heavy metal cleanup?
I've heard people have tried it. I've never heard of it working on the mining toxins.
Mining toxins.
The thing with the mining is that it's kind of chunky and big piles of stuff, whereas you need the roots to go down and contact everything. And I'm not sure that the mycelium would pull up that much metals.
Okay. Thank you.
One more thing about testing with the water.
Yes.
I always tell people when you're having your water tested for metals, make sure that you request the lowest possible reporting standard. Because a lot of times they may only test it to 5 parts per million, and they'll tell you it's non-detect when it could be 4 or 3, but the labs can usually get down to 1 or a half of a part per billion.
Right.
So you always want to look at, when you see non-detect, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not
Means
there.
it's not there. It just
below
means
whatever that
right.
reporting limit is.
Because when I switched over to the RO system, the levels in my hair dropped. So it was clearly linked.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would test your water again. It's not, you Do you want to take it into the Cranmer lab? And
I don't have
something like
control.
that?
It's the landlord who's got control. But thank you for the
You can do
information.
it yourself.
Oh, that's true. Why not?
If you're drinking that water, yeah,
Cool.
take a sample in. They can't tell you not to.
And take it in where? Where does one do that?
There's a lab in town in Grass Valley called Cranmer. It's on, it's on East Main, yeah.
Okay.
Up near Sierra College Drive. And they'll
Excellent.
test it. It's not too expensive. If you're just
Thank
doing
you.
one test. So, yeah, you're welcome.
I have two questions. Is this on?
Yeah, it's broadcasting.
Okay. Number one, you took us in the California Naturalist Training. You took us to Champion Mine.
Yeah.
That was so incredible. I just want to know if there's other places that have been rehabbed like that
There's quite a few, that
that you guys have worked on.
Yeah, we've worked on 3 of them in the Deer Creek area, and I've worked on a lot of other ones when I worked. I used to work for Holdridge & Cole for
Yeah.
about 12 years, and we worked on quite a few there too. Yeah.
I think we need to advertise that a little more so people know. And then didn't you tell us that there's like a huge amount of mines that need to be rehabbed in Grass Valley and Nevada City?
Yeah, they're all over. If you
right.
look at the old maps,
you gave
there's-
some huge number, like
There's dozens of them in
200
you know,
in Nevada City and 400 in Grass Valley.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
if you count all
amazing.
the little tiny ones, yeah.
It's amazing. I think the word needs to get out on that. Number two, I used to live in a mining town that was a copper mining town. I don't know why I always live in mining towns, but going back to see my friends, it turns out there are lots of cancer clusters there, which got me to
Yeah.
thinking, do we have that here? Do you
Well,
know?
yeah, Sierra Streams has been doing some work. It's called the CHIME study, and you can look at it on the at our website.
How do you spell it?
CHIME, where they've been doing testing of local people. One thing we know is that Nevada County and some of the other mining counties, Amador, have higher than normal, have some of the highest breast cancer rates in California. So we're trying to see if there's a link
Wow.
to people's activities, whether they're gardening, whether they live close to mines, that kind of thing. So
Wow.
we've done a couple of different studies working with UC Davis and UC San Francisco.
I really love the work that Sierra Streams does, so thank you
Thanks,
very
yeah.
much.
Yeah, it's a great place to work.
Hi.
Hi.
Nevada Irrigation District has got a machine that's like a trommel, and they're extracting supposedly mercury. It's in the test phase pilot project. Do you know about that project?
The one at
Combi?
Combi, yeah,
Yeah.
I worked a little bit with that when it was
Yeah.
just in the.
Are they
getting
able to
started.
extract? See, you kind of opened my eyes about. I was always thinking about mercury,
Mhm.
but the other contaminants, is that able to extract that?
I think
that
it's
little
just
trommel?
focused on mercury because
I think they
mercury
focus-
kind of
yeah.
is a separate element.
Yeah,
the other
so-
metals are usually tied up into other rocks.
One of my concerns is that one possibility that Nevada Irrigation wants to do, we thought it was a good idea, but I'm kind of concerned with it, and here's what I'm thinking. There's a lot of sediments. These entire reservoirs are filling up with sediments, and if they reprocess those might stir up all these other contaminants. I was always thinking mercury, and it's fairly easy to get. Isn't that true? It's easier to get than those other
It's easier to get the elemental mercury. It's
Yeah.
harder to get the very fine particles.
Right.
And so once they treat that water, the hardest part is to get the mercury out of the really fine, the clay material. So they have to use settling tanks and flocculants, polymers that help it settle out before they can discharge the water.
Well,
But
anyway,
they're
the-
highly regulated on
Yeah, the
what they
party
can
line,
discharge.
they're hoping to extract all that mercury out of those sediments, and it's a huge scale. I don't
Yeah.
know how they're really going to do that, and there are some side effects, unintended consequences that we might not know about stirring up those sediments. Maybe they're better locked up in sediments. So it's some things to think about.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Anyone else?
Hi, Kyle.
Hey, Mike.
Mike Pasner. I'm curious about copper in the county. I know you said there's some down in Spenceville. We've been to the abandoned mine down there, and
Right.
that cleanup site down there. Have they found other groupings of copper in our county?
Not really that's been mined that I know of. I've been to one that was down on the Yuba, it was downstream of. Oh, I'm trying to think exactly where it was. But it's more in the western part, the downstream part of the Yuba. It's west of where most of the gold mines are, where there was some copper coming out. The water was seeping down, and there was these white. If you see like white and yellowish crystals forming on the edges of water and in pools and things, that's a good indication that it's a copper mine.
Wow.
And I went there with a geologist that showed it to me, and we had to cross the river and hike around. And he put his rock hammer in the pool when we walked up to look at the mine. And when we came back an hour or so later, there was a patina of copper on his rock hammer. So there was some pretty strong stuff. So, but I don't know of too many, mining or no active copper mines, and very few, abandoned ones in this area.
Thank you.
Hi, Kyle. I'm
Hi.
Jonathan Keene. I'm with the Wolf Creek Community Alliance, and so I was really interested to hear you talk about the two remediation on the two Empire Mine and North Star Mine, where they have these. They're trying to get the heavy metals out of the water.
The drain tunnels, yeah.
Out of the This is all the water that's in the tunnels that are down there. In both of the two biggest mines, probably in California, the tunnels fill up with water and they eventually spill out, and they come out because they have high levels of toxic metals.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if you've heard recently about. I know that the magenta drain one, it seems to be working pretty well. There are the bioremediation reeds that are growing at in one of the settling ponds, and I believe they have to actually remove those plants every so often because they have bioremediated.
Right.
But then the plants themselves are holding the metals.
Yeah, that's what you have to do with metal when you're using phytoremediation, is using plants. If you're using it with metals, they accumulate. You have to harvest them and then dispose of that, and sometimes it can be hazardous waste. Where they'll.
But what do you know? Can you just update us on what the current status of the North Star?
The last I heard, it was that
I've heard it basically was designed on the same pattern as the one that's been working at Empire Mine for about 7 or 8 years.
Right.
now.
Yeah. Newmont Mining Company is paying for that whole thing, and I haven't been down there since. I think it's completed and operating now. I don't know a lot about it. It hasn't really made the news much, which is interesting. Yeah. That water used to go into the Grass Valley wastewater treatment plant, and then they had to deal with it mostly by dilution, where you were still releasing that metal, but it got to a low enough level that it passed, the test. But they were, by court order, they were required to build this remediation system.
Right. Yeah, that's my understanding. I was just curious if you'd heard what's the latest on it. But
Yeah, I'm not sure. I should look into that.
Get a story out in the paper somewhere about it.
Yeah. Definitely.
Joni Blackster, what plants are good bioremediators for heavy metals?
Well, ferns are the best one for arsenic is ferns, and unfortunately, ferns that they use there. They're called brake ferns, and they're native to Florida, and they don't survive the winter here.
Oh.
So we wanted to use those in our test, but we've seen it accumulate in certain grasses, like the purple needle grass. The state grass actually is one of the good remediators.
How about hemp with the new farm bill, now that hemp is legal?
I haven't done any testing with hemp. We
I-
talked about that kind of
I know
jokingly, but
Cal-
it
they
wasn't
would
legal
know
at the
about
time.
this too, but I know hemp and potentially bamboo, and there's other ones that are supposedly
Yeah.
really good for.
Yeah, you want fast-growing plants that take up a lot of nutrients, that have a good root system.
So I've read that Chernobyl is covered with marijuana plants because they're remediators for radioactive substances. So I wonder if they take up heavy metals.
Yeah. I don't know. They probably do. So we haven't tested them. So
All right, so ferns,
next time around.
ferns and purple needle grass.
Those are two that I know of. Yeah, willows take up some too. But like I
And-
said, we never really saw it accumulate to the extent where it would have been really feasible to do in any cleanup in situ. So we haven't done any real pilot tests. We've done testing, but we haven't really used it to remediate.
Okay.
Mostly we're using isolation and capping, and the most toxic things we're hauling away to a landfill just because we just need to get them really well isolated.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So a couple things. I wasn't looking at my Facebook page when he was speaking. I'm taking some notes because one of the benefits of doing this show for the last 3 years is I personally have met, talked with, and interviewed over 1,000 people from Mount Shasta to Sacramento, from Vallejo to Truckee. So I'm not a scientist, but I am a concerned and active citizen who actually, by deciding to be a part of helping to make positive change, I've actually learned a lot. So, of course, talking about the stream and water remediation from the standpoint of heavy metals from the mining legacy, that's huge. And like he was saying, we could be investing all the money that we pulled out from the gold rush to just remediate and fix the problem. So we're today focused on water and health, and that's definitely a huge issue. Along with the spraying or the uses of algicides by NID. And I know Michael Passner from Safe Ditches and Yara are here to talk a little more about that. One of the really big issues I've been really focusing on, and recently again, Michael Passner was on the front page of the Union, is the fact that there's still Roundup and heavy metals being used on the NID ditches. We invited Laura Peters here today. I thought she was going to show up, but she's not here. She is the new member of the NID board in Placer County. But as opposed to counting on other people to do the work for us, and this is another reason I praise Sierra Streams, they do what's called citizen science. They get people in the community to go out and actually do testing and to find out some of these issues. So to answer your question about water testing, I recently, with a partner of mine, Poyom Riles, who's a civil engineer and water hydrologist with Stantec, we decided to take the 1,000 individuals and organizations that I've interviewed over the last 3 years and to put them into a resource so that you don't have to spend a lot of time doing research. You can go by categories of resilience, emergency preparedness, food, water security, economic development, food and garden. You can actually go now to one place, and it's called The Source. Now, there's not one organization that The Source is about. What it is a unbiased, highly vetted resource that you can go there by categories. You can find people in the active network directory, but there's also a listing of blogs, which are informational excerpts on all of these topics we're talking about, and events. Now, the blog and the source directory started about a year ago. We already have 1,000 people in there, and we're constantly working to make it better. One of the things that we're doing is right now about 100 key individuals like Ben and others, we're giving them platinum access to the directory so that they can start posting their events, they can start posting information, and they can post resources of, most importantly, and this is what this whole public forum is about, it's about solutions. To sit here and listen to people go on and on about the nefarious underpinnings of how the system doesn't work and all the problems there are would be not only depressing, but it wouldn't be necessarily the best use of time. So we're very committed on solutions. So I want to encourage everyone at your time to go to the source directory. And again, we're constantly upgrading. We're actually bringing on a part-time staff person this week to help manage that. But it's a great resource because if you're interested in all these topics of resilience, where can you go and see about soil remediation, water remediation? Where can you learn about what's called biological agriculture, which is an aspect of permaculture? Where can you learn about emergency preparedness? So recently I got on the public committee for the NID board, and I also recently got on the board, public board for the Emergency Preparedness in Nevada County, because I realized after attending a meeting, as great as these organizations are, I can't count on them to do the work that I want done. I have to roll up my sleeves and I have to get involved and help to make the change. Like I go on Nevada County Peeps. So many people, oh, there's fire issues in I hear all the issues. So what are the solutions? So instead of just constant information saturation, we vet it and we're trying to provide contacts and solutions for people so that they can finally do things. About the water issue, recently the Source Directory and Golden Road Productions partnered with Tap My Score, which is one of the top water testing labs I found in the country. They work out of the University of California, Berkeley. I met with John Pujol, the director. They do water testing for hundreds of different things. You just have to tell them what you want to test for. It can be anywhere from, $50 up to a few $100s. I want to test for herbicides. I want to test for pesticides. I want to test for heavy metals. So you can contact them through the source. They send you a box. You do your water sample. You send it in. Now, there's other people who do water testing for pH and many other things, but I will want to say, and as an endorsement, also with a person I work with, David Howland, who is planning on being here today, who's a water scientist who couldn't be here. Him and I actually went out recently and took the responsibility of testing the water at Bitney Springs, because there's a big sign right there. You know what? Nevada County doesn't test this water. You drink it. It's your problem, right? The system, we can see right now the government's shut down. The system is overburdened and it's broken. So we're trying to inspire you to become an active part to help make a change. We're not here to say this person's wrong or that's person wrong, or it's, again, left or right. We're here to say that the community is the bridge between the government and the nonprofits to help roll up our sleeves and get the work done. So the water contact is just one contact, along with other people that I've been talking with over the last month who are trying to help in Paradise. It's an absolute nightmare. I've talked with people up in Helltown, the town right next door, where they're doing mushroom mycological remediation on the soil. They're working with things like hemp. They're actually doing biomass, carbonized biomass in the creeks and in the bodies of water to try to help absorb some of the toxins of the air are in the water. So there's lots of possible solutions. So as much as possible through science, through the arts of permaculture and the other disciplines that have had these answers for a long time, we're trying to reach the community. We're trying to get people's messaging out, and that's really what the show's about. So the next person we had scheduled, she's with the Green Party. She's also one of the heads of GMO-free Nevada County. And even though today's focused on health and water, the relationship of GMOs to glyphosate, which again we're going to have Dr. Michelle Pirro speak in just a little bit, is completely becoming more transparent. So I'm going to invite up Ben Emery, please. Again, he's involved with the Nevada County Green Party, and he's also one of the people involved with GMO-free Nevada County. So a nice round of applause, please, for Ben.
Well, thank you very much. This is awesome. I like this whole outfit going on here. So I'm here in lieu of my wife. She has a really nasty cold. It's just going around. So I was kind of handed a bunch of papers and told to show up. So the GMO-free Nevada County it's a movement more than an organization. We're trying to just educate people on what GMOs are and how they're grown, and what the dangers are associated with them. And our goal is to make Nevada County GMO free, which would be add another 1,000 acres or 1,000 square miles of GMO free in the United States or in California. And we would be the 7th county in California to join that group of counties if we were to achieve that. And that's kind of what we've been focusing on. And right now, we have started going to school board meetings and district county meetings, trying to get build it up from the roots up. Try to get parents and teachers and administrators involved on the health of their students and their children. That's the way we found out that we were one of the Green Party helped get single-use plastic bags banned, and that was one of the ways we did it. We went to the elementary schools and we got them involved, and then you fill up the city halls filled with little kids and their stories, and it's hard for them to say no to little children and the health of their rivers and the water. So that's one of the ways we're going about it right now. I have been kind of out of the loop. I'm actually a person dealing with cancer right now. I am, knock on wood, cancer-free for 4 years. Last fall, my dad passed away of Parkinson's, which is also has been linked to glyphosate. So these are all personal things that are all coming back down to me. So my little pitch is going to be more personal. We had a niece who is a third-generation sod, born into a sod farming family. Her intestines were born on the outside of her body, which is also one of the side effects of glyphosate. California has named it a probable carcinogen, yet it is still being sprayed publicly. And so these are all concerns that we all have, and most people don't really understand that aspect of it. And then they don't really understand what GMOs really are, and it sounds like we have a great panel of people here to explain it, so I won't even mess around with it, not because I don't want to mess it up. But basically, when you raise GMOs, you're killing the soil. There's microbes, there's living organisms in that soil. And when you use herbicides and pesticides, you're killing the life in the soil. So it becomes dirt. There is a difference between dirt and soil. And the way GMOs are grown, you're feeding the plant, not necessarily the plant feeding off the soil itself. So there's a big difference between healthy looking food and healthy food. And that's what kind of the trick that gets played on us all the time. I manage a private farm / ranch. Either I'm a very micro farmer or a very large gardener, depending on how you want to look at it. We grow food anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 pounds of vegetables a year. We raise livestock. We have an orchard, and we are all chemical free. And I am actually certified in permaculture from a guest coming up soon from Cathay Fish. And we practice regenerative agriculture on the property I work on, and also on a 900-acre property that's trying to restore the water table or recharge the springs through mob grazing practices. And so we're really kind of involved in all that aspect of regenerative agriculture, which really is the future of agriculture. We have to move that direction if we are going to survive as a species. And there is a bunch of numbers on here that I'm not going to bother because it sounds like we have more professional people who will know these numbers. What I will talk more about is, because I am unofficially representing the Green Party today, is we're in really close relations with our Butte County Green Party. And with that Green Party, we can actually start building on this little coalition with the Sierra Streams, with these other groups, to get glyphosate banned from our counties. And that would be, and it just goes right along with the NID ditch water, because our farm actually gets the NID ditch water as well. And that's always been one of my concerns, is because they give you dates when they're going to spray in the ditches. So we shut off our water at the source, so we don't let any of that water come down for 3 days. So the other aspect of it is reaching out and joining other groups, building coalitions. And that is going to be the number one way we get to it, because it doesn't take many people to get into a city hall meeting or to a school board meeting to make a change, because so few people, it is somewhat boring, but so few people go to those meetings. A small amount of people could actually get real change done. And that's the key to getting the change done. And this is an international issue as well. My brother lives in Cambodia, and he has an organization about organic farming and empowering villages to build their own co-ops, to grow their own organic food, to keep the excess to sell themselves so they actually have income instead of giving it to the middle person who they would have to purchase seeds from. They all save their own seeds, they all clean their own seeds, and they trade seeds. And that's another aspect of GMOs that people don't quite realize, the concentration of seeds and the growth of our food. When we patent life, we're really limiting our ability to actually have diversity and people to survive on it. In India, farmers are committing suicide because they're sold a bill of goods on GMOs and what yields they're going to promote. And so today, it sounds like it's based on water and health. And I just really want to emphasize that GMOs equal glyphosate. Glyphosate, it's not sprayed on individual weeds. It's sprayed on everything. And those seeds are modified so they do not die off. If you were to have a non-GMO seed there, it would die. And so these are the concerns that we have, and that we're trying to basically ban in Nevada County. And if there were any question, I was going to see if Cathay would actually come up, because she's going to be way more on top of everything, because my focus has been on taking care of my dad and my own health. So off the top of my head, I don't trust my answers. I'd like to have a little more professional opinion. And
Definitely professional.
Yes. So this is Cathay Fish.
So the GMO-free group here in our county has been going probably for 8 years, and it's gone through lots of different rebirths. It's a pretty small group, but it's a pretty feisty group. And the goal is, there's a lot of goals, but obviously the big goal is to make Nevada County GMO free. I personally would love to see, I'm gonna say it out in public, I would love to see Briar Patch go GMO free, at least in the deli. I would like to go into the deli and eat food that does not have GMOs on it. I don't know, how do you guys feel about that? Yeah. So that's one of the things I'm working on. And if you shop at the Briar Patch, how about putting a little constructive comment in saying that you would like to see food, especially meat, in the deli that's GMO free. And you guys know that natural does not mean GMO free. Okay? So take a look. They have great signs, right, sitting above the food in the deli. And you'll see the first thing, if it's meat, we'll say a little asterisk it'll say natural. And then everything else has a star because it's organic. And so I did a little thing there, my personal little action. I've done a lot of actions there, but my own action is, when I first moved here, I wouldn't be a member until they marked some of their food GMO free. Took me a while, but they did it. So my action right now is to convince them that even if it's spare meat, at least have the meat be GMO free, so we don't have to eat Roundup and all that. Natural isn't good enough. Is it for you? No, natural's not good enough. So there's all different kinds of actions going on with GMO-free Nevada County. And the meetings are about once a month. And then, are you going to talk about what you guys did at that biotech place?
Oh, that's true.
I think you should talk about that, because there's some really good activism going on.
Okay.
Yeah, you should talk about
and
that.
Thank you, Cathay. So, my wife was part of the Monsanto 8. Last year, they were part of the Monsanto 10. What it is it's a civil disobedience. It's a majority of Green Party, but it's not necessarily Green Party. But they go down to Woodland, to the main place where Monsanto does its... Oh, the largest Monsanto biolab in the world. And it's called Shut Down Monsanto. So what they did was they laid down in the driveway to not allow the employees to go through. And what the purpose of it is to be arrested, to then have to go to court and force Monsanto to admit that their science knows that this is not healthy. Last year, Monsanto did not show up, as expected, but it also allowed the media to come in and do some reporting. So there was a lot of media attention around it, and that's where civil disobedience is a really good tool to try to promote change. It's nonviolent, and you get your message out, and a lot of information that is usually not heard actually gets reported in the newspaper and on the news that way. So if you're willing to be arrested and speak out, contact the Nevada County Green Party, contact GMO-free Nevada County, and we will definitely get you on track to participating. Yes, well, I'm getting arrested.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing about it. You do it one time, and then all of a sudden everything changes, because, I could give you examples in composting toilets, gray water rules, and all that kind of thing. how getting arrested one time has really changed the rules. And the big thing on those two was in Tucson, Arizona. I mean, they're now my heroes for the whole country.
All right. So this is the thing. Again, I want to just thank Cathay Fish from Practical Permaculture. Yeah. And I want to thank Ben Emery. And I also want to thank Susan, because she after our last public forum 2 months ago, and we had Kathleen Halal here come all the way up from Ventura to speak about non-toxic communities, which is now a national movement. She went out and printed up these really nice cards that are pretty much readable in a culture of 60-second attention span. So I really want to comment and compliment her on the effort for doing this. So we have lots more speakers coming up. I'm going to invite Billy to come up. He has a great song called The Ocean. We're going to listen, just have a little bit of a creative break. Oh, Mother Sea. And then we got like 4 or 5 more speakers. So I'm going to try to get people to just be aware of time. And also I want to save time for all of you to be able to ask questions. Also, we are streaming to Facebook. We're streaming to KVMR Facebook, Golden Road. We're also broadcasting live on NCTV. So we give people the opportunity through this media platform that we've created to help. Oh, on Facebook, I have this question. Could you please ask this? It's a way to start building these bridges that we're talking about in our community. And again, everyone who's in this room is very active in helping to make changes here in our community. So we're focused right now on water and health. And of course, water health isn't just heavy metals. It's not just herbicides and pesticides. It's also microplastics. And David Howland, who was scheduled to be here, couldn't make it, but he is a great resource. He's one of the people on the source that talks about what's the best type of water filtrations. What's great is through Tap Your Score, the water testing company, when you send them the water sample, which you can do, we're giving ground floor, very grassroots, practical solutions and ideas for people. When you get your water sample back and they tell you exactly what's wrong, they also recommend what type of water filtration, reverse osmosis, ceramic, charcoal filters. So there's no excuse anymore for people to have to complain about the water, even though we're dealing with the bigger issues. We're trying to start with the personal and then move it on to the local, into the regional, and then eventually, of course, thinking global. And in just a few minutes, I'm really happy to also have another person who I saw speak briefly at the emergency preparedness meeting. And she's a advisor to the vice mayor, correct? Did I get it right? But in a few minutes, we're going to have also up Renette Senham, who just started a project called Goat Fund Me, which is another kind of permaculture, a natural way of dealing with some of these problems. So the answers, the solutions are out there. We're just trying to, in the age of cognitive decline, cognitive dissonance, limited attention spans, reach people and say, these are the issues. It's not left or right. These are about community health. It's about our children's health. And here's some solutions. Here's things you can do in your kitchen. Here's things that you can do in the comfort of your home. Here's things you can do with your neighbor or in your neighborhood. So on that, let's just take a little moment, have a little musical break, and then I'm going to have Michael and Yara Passner up from Safe Ditches, who have really been in the spotlight lately about the use of Roundup and even more particularly the heavy metals that are being still put into the NID ditches, affecting everything in Nevada County, groundwater, agriculture, and the farm. So let's enjoy another round of some music with Billy Bensing, and then we'll have Michael and Yara up. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Anyway, glad to be a part of this, everybody. I want to play a song called Old Mother Sea. I recorded this in Australia when I was like 20 years old. And then it got into 2 major movies. One of them was Crystal Voyager, and the other was called Spirit of Acacia. And anyway, but the problem was I was about 17 years old living in Paris, France, because I moved there, from the East Coast. And the Great Lakes were dead. And it caused quite a upset for me to thinking that the largest lakes in the world could actually be killed. I mean, everything was dead in it, right? So I went, how stupid is that? Are human beings dumb enough to kill the greatest lakes? And is the ocean next, is what my question was. So I kind of got, this song sort of came to me. It's called Old Mother Sea. And it's sort of about the ocean saying, be careful because I'm going to kick your asses if you keep messing with me. And that's what this song is about. It goes like this. I created a little track for it. Mother Sea had a message for me. She told of a great misery. She told of a world which is bigger and greater than people can see. And she said, "You've taken so much from me over the years. I've given you much of your wealth. But now something's happening and I feel slackening of my great strength. Can't treat me like my poor children upstream. Careful with old Mother Sea. 'Cause I am of nature, and you can't destroy nature, and you cannot destroy me. There comes a day I will no longer live. Great waves will wash you away. They plead for mercy. Now did my children get mercy? Man, you're gonna pay.
All right.
Was that too loud?
Man, that song almost brings me to tears every time I hear it. Such a sad state of affairs, right? All the things that we see happening. But again, this room is filled with solution people, and of course, even the Sacramento River flows out to the bay, which flows out to the sea. Right. So we're going to invite our next speakers up. This is Michael and Yara Passner from Safe Ditches. They're doing a lot. They've been in the spotlight lately, and I'll let them tell you more about what they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for inviting us here today. I'm Mike Passner. This is my daughter, Yara Passner. We are Indian Springs Organic Farm. We've been farming here in Penn Valley organically for 32 years. We will be co-presenting this afternoon. I'll start with some history of our the use of Nevada Irrigation's district water on our farm. Yara will give an overview of NID's origins and evolution of current practices, and we'll finish with potential threats and how you can help bring about positive change for health and safety. Once the farm closed escrow in 1986, I went into NID's main office here in Grass Valley to pay my NID bill. They presented me with a calendar of the days they would be shutting my water off during the irrigation season. The reason for the shutoff was a drip application of aquatic herbicides directly into the irrigation water. This seemed like the most nonsensical thing to do, putting poison directly into water. Don't the animals drink it? Doesn't it end up in the well water and the natural water system? Over the last 32 years, I've been filing public records requests, attending public meetings, corresponding with NID staff and board members, and making noise. This is not right. Today we're here to convince NID to lead our state and nation in reducing our dependency on aquatic and terrestrial herbicides.
NID's water conveyance system was originally developed for miners. resulting in a complicated net of canals and reservoirs that were dug for the temporary purpose of conveying water to and from mines. Over 100 years ago, these ditches were adapted to support the new thriving economy growing in our district, agriculture. Today, there are about 475 miles of irrigation ditches in NID, and for the last 40 years, 350 miles of these canals have been treated with herbicides. Roundup is applied to the irrigation ditches throughout the year with no notice beforehand. Roundup contains glyphosate, which, as we've discussed, has been found to be carcinogenic in court for causing Dwayne Johnson's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. The Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment has since placed glyphosate on California's Proposition 65 list of chemicals known to cause cancer. NID has responded by forming the Integrated Vegetation Management Working Group with the mission of field testing alternatives to glyphosate-based Roundup. Although the effort is headed in the right direction, this working group is seriously flawed. It is not open to the public, nor is it accepting recommendations from the public to guide their research, which hamstrings the working group's ability to operate with transparency and potentially to succeed at their mission. Rubber tracked excavators are already used once a year to clean the ditch system, and we propose this method would be a suitable alternative to Roundup and the use of elemental copper. The working group is not currently considering expanding on this simple solution. Additionally, the working group is aimed only at reducing glyphosate use. NID has not invested in a program to reduce their dependency on copper-based herbicides such as Nautique, Cutrine, and Keptan, which are dripped directly into the water monthly during the irrigation season, the 6 months between April 15th and October 15th.
During aquatic herbicide treatments, NID is permitted to legally apply copper-based herbicides directly into the water. NID has claimed the copper levels of up to 2,500 parts per million are safe for animals to drink. However, a 2008 California Environmental Protection Agency report specifies that consuming 250 parts per million of copper made pigs lose significant body weight, and levels as low as 10 parts per million of copper in their diet made sheep ill. Recently, research from NID's California Animal Health and Food Safety Lab, UC Davis's, yes, I missed it, I guess. UC Davis's Health Lab indicates that water guidelines for copper levels in livestock drinking water should not be above 0.5 parts per million, which is 5,000 times less than NID's guidelines. 5,000 times less. A test from our irrigation water on Poison Day showed 1,100 parts per million of copper in the water. When I presented these numbers to NID's Resource and Maintenance Committee, I earned a cease and desist letter from NID's legal counsel accusing me of stealing water and putting ourselves at risk. Really, stealing water? At risk because of herbicide treatments they say are safe to swim in and for our animals to drink? We do have the right to test our water on our own property.
Moving forward, we are going to continue asking questions and engaging with NID to help make their public records more accessible. Our two latest public records requests are for exact levels of copper that are found in irrigation water, natural streams, and above water treatment plants. How much Roundup has been applied to the system during each of their roughly 400 terrestrial applications throughout 2018. We also have an interest in motivating NID to update their public information regarding when and where both copper-based aquatic herbicides and Roundup are being applied. So how can you help end this toxic treadmill? Call or write NID. Ask them to open the Integration Vegetation Management Working Group to the public, to us, and expand the group's mission to reducing their dependency on copper and glyphosate-based herbicides. Also, let your board representative know that you are concerned about their herbicide use and its effects on water, livestock, and people. We have developed a website that has this information that we presented here, maps, pictures, and more. Please visit with us after this presentation or online at safeditches.com to learn more.
Today, NID's expansive irrigation system has provided irrigation water to farmers and ranchers for more than a century, and that service is integral to our community's rich agricultural history. NID has the potential to be an excellent steward of our community's resource, leading our state and nation away from chemical dependency. Help them realize this potential, get herbicides out of our water. Big thanks to Michael DiMartino for hosting this community resilience event. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions?
Good. Thank you.
Very good. Owned. Great, thanks. Great, thank you so much. And again, recently I went to the open public meeting where they were taking input from the community and somehow got on another committee for the public committee for NID. So I'm now attending those meetings. And also really exciting, tragic but exciting, is the Nevada County Emergency Preparedness meetings that are happening now because again, like the guy from CAL FIRE said regarding before the Paradise Fire happened, he goes, people in the community need to take personal responsibility. He goes, we're overworked, we're sometimes underfunded, and when we drive by people who are yelling help as we're going to deal with what we have to deal with as a priority, he goes, there's just not enough resources. So again, part of this is about inspiring individuals in our community to become activated to help build these bridges between government and the nonprofits, the 350 or so nonprofits that exist just in Nevada County, not even mentioning the whole bioregion. So I can't do this alone. I want to thank Jim Heck and Tara Pacifico, who are in the control room at NCTV helping to do the broadcast. I also want to thank NCTV, who somehow still lets me on the air with all of my my radical activist activities. And I also want to thank these folks right here, Lotus Guide Magazine, Rahasia, Poe, and Dara, who have been putting out a holistic health magazine for years and actually live in the area of Paradise, and I actually went and visited them a couple months ago and said, wow, it's so beautiful up here, but what do you do in case of a fire, right? So they recently actually went out and got a hempcrete sprayer and aircreted a lot of their house, and they actually covered the roof so that the roof wasn't flammable. And strangely enough, their house in Magalia survived the fire, unlike 30,000 other people who didn't. But now they're working with the Chamber of Commerce and the Board of Supervisors. They were given one of the only standing buildings in Paradise to create a human resilience center dealing with the fallout and the trauma of what people have been through in that area. Because sometimes when we think about resilience, we think about, okay, economic development and emergency preparedness, and we're dealing with food, water security, and we're dealing with, you know, how the arts and culture play, especially in this area where we just got a national certification, how all these factors play in, but sometimes we fail to connect with the human part of resilience. Like, I go to senior centers, I do music therapy. It is so sad, the state of how senior citizens in our culture, our society are and can be dealt with. So there's a lot of these issues, but I want to compliment them right now. They're up there at Ground Zero opening this holistic health center, and they're actually doing it. I actually have a meeting in a week with Deb Lucero from the Board of Supervisors, because one thing I've realized by creating the source directory, and everyone who speaks today, we're going to platinumize you so we can get all of our events and all of our messages and blogs and contacts on the same page. It's turnkey for people to find. Is that I work with a lot of soil remediation people, water remediation people, biologic farmers. I know people in Helltown, like I said, they're doing remediation with hay bales and mushrooms. There's a lot of ground floor grassroots knowledge that the people, the administrators, the bureaucrats might not be aware of because they have their hands full just trying to deal with the workload that they have as an administrator. So again, we're trying to help build these bridges. So I want to just acknowledge another gentleman who's here today, deeply committed to water and to health. and then we have a couple more speakers, and I'm really excited for one of our keynotes. She came a long way to be here today. I heard her speak at the state capitol at the Roundup rally, and just a wealth of knowledge, and even injured, she is here. She's writing books. I mean, incredible. But before we do that, I want to just welcome and acknowledge our next speaker. He's going to talk a little bit about his work with the Wolf Creek Alliance, correct? And a nice round of applause for another person in our community who's doing great work, Jonathan Keene.
Hi, I wasn't really planning to speak, but thank you for inviting me, and thanks for this it's very interesting forum. And I really like this idea of the source the area, that someplace where anybody could go and get some great information. I think it's a really good idea. And the Wolf Creek Community Alliance, we've been working on, we do water quality monitoring in Wolf Creek, Wolf Creek is a tributary to the Bear. It's entirely within Nevada County. It starts on Banner Mountain, goes right through downtown Grass Valley, and runs down to the Bear River, about 25 miles long. We started about 15 years ago. We do water quality monitoring, and it's great to see Mike and Yara here. Yara was a monitor when she was about this tall, and so she's still going. In fact, she's going. It's great to see her doing what she's doing now. So thank you, Yara and Mike. She's got some great parents. We do the same kind of monitoring that Sierra Streams does. Kyle spoke a little bit about it before. Circle also does monitoring in the Yuba watershed. We do the Wolf Creek watershed. We have about 25 sites now that we monitor every month. We've got volunteers that go out and collect mostly just the basic data of the water, which is like the temperature, the pH, conductivity, the dissolved oxygen, and the turbidity. Those things just give you a snapshot of what the water quality is like in general, and it's over time, and then over through the year, and then over time also. So that data has been collected now for about 15 years. We're actually just now, we've collected the data, but it's going to be put into a more accessible database, and probably within the next 6 months or so, it'll be much more easy to look this data up, and you could, pick one of our sites, for instance, and get a history of every data point that was collected over the last number of years. Right now it's available, but it's harder to read. So getting it into this new database is going to be a big improvement for us. Let's see, someone mentioned about how important it is to get kids involved. We've been lucky. We've been working with the Grass Valley Charter School. They have a great program, and they've adopted 2 new monitoring sites. So once a month, they call them their class, their 5th grade class comes out. They walk from the school, which is in downtown Grass Valley. It's about a half-mile walk to their monitoring sites, and they're monitoring 2 sites. It's at a confluence where Wolf Creek and Little Wolf Creek come together, and they collect the data, and make kind of a day of it, because it's kind of a long walk. But it's really great to have them involved. They have also, that same school, they've also petitioned the city of Grass Valley and the Nevada County Transportation Department, because they wanted to put up some signs near the little bus station in downtown Grass Valley describing the history of Wolf Creek and the animals and plants that live there. They got permission from the city council, they got permission from the Transportation Commission, and you can go down there to the Tinloy bus station right now, and you can see these signs that the kids developed and wrote, created themselves, and got permission to put them up, and there they are. So it's like really cool. We like that a lot. The other things we try to keep track of things that are of importance to the watershed. We are a very small group. We have one very part-time employee who coordinates our monitoring program. Other than that, we're all volunteers. And we were able to help when the city was redesigning their planning documents for the city. They didn't have any setback requirements for buildings that were going to be built near a creek, and we got the city to include some setback requirements. And it's not enough, but at least it's something, and it's in the city's legal documents now. So that's another thing that we've been involved with. So anyway, Michael, thank you very much for inviting me. Yeah.
All right. Such great work and so humble. That's one of the things I love about this community. I want to just acknowledge Seth Roseman was going to speak today. He's another water scientist, and he was going to speak particularly about, I know in this area of California, cannabis is a huge issue. So we were going to talk about the effects of the cannabis now in industry with legalization. He's not able to attend because of a family emergency, but we will have him back at some future date. I think it's really exciting now that they passed the Farm Bill and now hemp can be legally grown, because I know hemp is a great plant for remediation. And I actually know some people right now that are currently doing that up in Butte County, up in Paradise, because that's a whole other nightmare that's unfolding. They still are trying to figure out how to even get all the toxic soil and materials out of the area without contaminating the region, and also where to go with it. So we're going to have our next speaker up. I see she's back there. Come on up, Renette. And she, come to find out, is another double fire horse. Which in Chinese astrology, fire horse is like, ugh, fellow fire horse, fellow community member born in 1966. Also my partner, Michael Logue at Golden Road Productions of Fire Horse. And lately there seems to be a lot of fire horses taking the reins and getting stuff done. So she does a lot of things, but recently I attended a meeting where she was educating the community about the effects of 5G. How many of you know about 5G? How many of you still think chemtrails are a conspiracy? How many of you know that the Gates Foundation just funded the Harvard University to do experiments with aerosol spraying to block out the sun? How many of you actually know? Okay, well, again, after today, everyone who spoke here today, along with 30 other people who we call our advisors and our scientists and specialists, will all continue to be posting all of this news here in the source, and not just complaining about things or educating you about things, but actually trying to look at some solutions and help partner people in the community. But without further ado, many of you know her. She was vice mayor, correct?
Vice mayor now, former mayor.
Vice mayor, former mayor. Anyways, her walk is her talk, and I'm always impressed in what she's doing. And recently she was on national media for her Goat Fund Me project. But a nice round of applause for Renette Senham.
Thank you, Michael. This is a great show. Thank you so much. It's extraordinarily important. Yes, and speaking of fire horses, I found out our newly elected state treasurer, Fiona Ma, is a fire horse as well. There you go. Yes, so I'm here to talk about 5G, and I want to start with that I'm not a Luddite. I support technology, but I support safe technology. And to let you know that, interestingly enough, I'm now fighting against 5G and reckless wireless deployment across the nation. But in 1990-91, I actually had the first cellular phone store in Nevada County. I was selling the Motorola bag phones, and I was actually looking forward to the day that we'd have low-orbiting satellites. I was an adventurer, and I thought it'd be great if I ever broke my leg on a mountaintop, I could just get on my phone and call for help. I thought it'd be great. That was before I understood the health risks. So a couple years ago, I got reelected again, second term on the city council for Nevada City. And Verizon came along knocking on our door, wanting to put 8 cell antennas in downtown Nevada City on a restaurant called Friar Tuck's in our historic district. I fought against that because it just didn't fit our town or what we needed. And we had actually enough Verizon service there. But it was during this fight that I began to learn about the health implications. And I thought that really these are radio frequencies, what could be the danger? And it was not until just a couple years before when a smart meter was put onto my house again, knew it was coming. I had no concerns. It had been installed in my house, did not know this, and I started to immediately notice, this is with hindsight, that when I would go to sleep, if I heard the slightest little sound like my cat jumping on my bed, there would be a reverberation of sound. There'd be like an echo chamber that was so loud I would jump. I would actually jump in my bed. And I couldn't sleep, and I was having these echoing in my ears as I was sleeping. And when I first got my bill from PG&E, there was a graph that clearly showed when I woke up in the morning, my energy consumption would go up. When I leave for work, it'd go down. When I come back for lunch, my energy consumption would come up. When I would return home, it'd come down. And here's this graph that you could easily see in all your PG&E bill when you can come into my house and take anything you wanted, when I'd be vulnerable, right? When I wouldn't be home. And I thought, I don't want that. I don't want that graph out there in the public for you to see when I'm coming and going, waking up, and when I'm going to sleep. It's nobody's business. So I want my smart meter removed from my house. It was removed. And as soon as it was removed, that echoing in my ears and that lack of sleep at nighttime immediately disappeared and has never returned since. That is when I realized that EMF sensitivity, electromagnetic frequency sensitivity, is a real thing. But it went much, much further than that. So I began to fight against the Verizon cell tower, and along the way I began to educate myself. And I learned that this 5G, which is 5th generation, we had 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, now we're 5th G. 5th G is a whole range of different frequencies, right? These frequencies originated with the military. This is a military application. This is the type of frequency that they use for crowd control. This is what they use to actually cause cancers, create heart attacks, right? To even terrorize a particular individual, depending upon the frequency. You can heal with frequencies and you can kill with frequencies. So when 5G came along, what happened was, and this was the doozy that caught my attention, is in the 1996 Telecommunication Act, 1996, how many of us knew about cell phones, right? And modems and the internet and the whole potential of wireless industry. It was just in its infancy stage. But interestingly enough, in 1996, they basically said, look it, you as a deciding body, city council, supervisor, congressman, senator, you cannot make any decisions based upon health consequences, period. That's a gag order. That would be equivalent to the auto industry coming to you and saying, okay, we've invented this car, but we cannot talk about the fact that speed kills. You cannot talk about harm reduction. You cannot talk about the need to add speed limits on the highways, or seatbelts, or turn signals, or brakes, or airbags. You cannot discuss harm reduction and the harm that speeding down the highway can get you killed. You can't talk about it. If you do, you'll get sued. Since when is this American? That was my red flag that something was seriously wrong. So I began to fight against implementation of 5G. We had a bill last year in California called SB 649. To me, it was nothing more than just floating the idea out there to find out what the cracks were, right? What the loopholes were in what the FCC was planning. FCC Chairman Tom Wheeler 2 years ago basically announced that by 2020, we're going to have over 2 million small cells, which is 5G, microwave radiating antennas up and down your neighborhoods, and you have no ability to say no. These bills have now been passed, right? This legislation has been passed. FCC has forwarded this bill. And right now, there looks like there may be a stay in the 10th Appellate Court, so we might be able to hold it off a little bit. In Nevada City, I've been working tirelessly to create what's called a telecom ordinance, right, to actually try to protect our residents and our businesses as much as possible. But it is not easy because basically anything that we had, any kind of standing we had last year has been eviscerated by the FCC in this last year. Right? They know what they're doing. The FCC is a hijacked industry. The FCC is also like the World Health Organization and the wireless industry. The telecom industry is actually, interestingly enough, the biggest lobbyist, more than petroleum, more than the cigarette industry. They're the ones out there paying off our representatives more than any other industry. So that is what we are up against. So basically, the millimeter wave, just to let you know, right out of the gate, it penetrates your whole entire body. One of the things it does, and this is the most disturbing, is this is actually what people ask, what is 5G? 5G is a whole new world where they're going to actually create our physical reality and the virtual reality, and they're going to combine them into the Internet of Things, where basically everything you do, everywhere you go, you will be triangulated, and this HiveMind will know. 5G actually, believe it or not, and this is through peer-reviewed studies, and there's thousands of peer-reviewed studies out there, by the way. Don't let anybody repeat the industry lie. There's no studies, there's no confirmation, that is an industry lie. What 5G is, it literally takes your body, and it takes your sweat ducts, and it turns those sweat ducts and the moisture it's pushing in your skin into an antenna that will send out and receive information. Currently, with the smart meters, you can literally opt out in your home. You cannot opt out right now. Elon Musk of Tesla is sending off 5G satellites every 3 days. They plan on bathing the whole entire planet with 5G, and you cannot opt out. We will literally, within a couple of years, be in a wireless cage. I've spent the last 15 years of my life building local economy in Nevada City, creating the Nevada City Organic Farmers Market, getting onto solar, trying to support our local economy, our local farmers, our local industries. And I realize that everything that I've done is for nothing if 5G is put into place, because it's going to eviscerate all the good that is on this planet. There's something called the Schumann's resonance. Schumann's resonance is a natural frequency of the planet. It has its own frequency, which is 7.83 hertz. Your alpha state is about 7.83 hertz as well. Studies have been done that if you are separated from that 7.83 Schumann resonance, you will actually perish and die. You need that frequency like you need the water and the air. And what's happening is this 5G and all of these wireless technologies are interfering in us receiving that resonance, right? Which means our health overall is going to fail. Interestingly enough, we have doctors and scientists out there who have also noted a correlation between glyphosates and wireless cell towers, upticks in cancer clusters. They've also noticed upticks in cancer clusters when you have high metals in your body, in your water, in your soils, and you're consuming them, and you have wireless, you'll have a higher case of cancers. In Nevada County, we have the highest rates of brain tumors in California. We also have an amazing increase in reproductive organ cancers. If many of you will note, we have many female residents in our county here, and the cancers are skyrocketing. We're talking 20, 30, 40-year-old women. It's actually very disconcerting. The Nation had an expose. One of their reporters did an incredible job on how Americans are being war gamed. This came from a Motorola internal memo from quite a few years ago that they're going to war game Americans like the cigarette industry war gamed Americans. And what that means is they're going to make sure that anybody out there criticizing wireless industry or the telecom industry is going to be discredited and shut down, whether they're a scientist or an activist. The other thing that they're going to do with war gaming is they're going to make sure that they put out constant misinformation, so as long as you don't know really what the truth is, they can keep getting away with it. And the last thing to be war gamed is when they will place people onto the World Health Organization, the FCC, right, the American Cancer Society. So you have industry insiders on these agencies, right, these ABC agencies that are supposed to protect you, and instead you've got the industry insiders on there protecting the industry. And that's what we're up against. It's huge. It's absolutely huge. So what do? Well, the first thing we do is we have to understand something, that we are bioelectric beings, right? We are frequency. We are frequency. It is impossible for this not to impact us. This impacts the birds, the bees, actually the healthy germs and the creatures in the soil. This affects the soil down to several inches, as a matter of fact, all right? This actually affects the water. This affects the trees. This affects the migratory birds. They can't actually migrate. They can't find their ways, nor can the bees. This has an impact on everything from food production, right? And this is the biggest of all. Those who are most vulnerable are the unborn and the young, and this is why. When you're a child, when you're an infant, your cells are dividing and multiplying, right? So what that means is that as an adult, what took me 20 to 30 years to ultimately develop a cancer will take a teenager 5 to 10 years. And when you give a cell phone or a tablet to a little 5-year-old, it will take them 2 to 3 years to develop a cancer that would have taken me 20 or 30 years, because those cells are multiplying so much faster. And the bones of their body, right, the tissues of their body are much more able to absorb those frequencies than us as adults. So they're far more vulnerable. So what we're seeing now, What was reserved for 65 years and older, what we are seeing now is a deadly brain tumor called the glioblastomas. Those are reserved for 65 years and older. The fastest growing segment of the population in America to get these glioblastomas are 20 to 29-year-olds. Why? Because they've had cell phones to their heads now for 10 years. Now we have young teenagers starting at 12 years old, putting a cell phone in their pocket. The fastest growing rate of prostate cancer is between 15 and 19-year-old boys because they've had their cell phone in their pocket for 5 years. We're going to see the same thing with younger, we're seeing children being born with leukemia, unheard of before, because their mother's been having tablets and cell phones and laptops, which are no longer called laptops. They're called personal computers because the industry caught on. If they say laptops, they're going to be vulnerable for radio frequency injury lawsuits, so they call them personal computers. But mothers with babies have putting their laptops and they're radiating their children. These microwaves are the exact same thing as a microwave in your oven. Same thing. So when you carry a phone around, you're actually carrying a microwave oven around with the door open 24/7. Think about that. So the best thing you can do is reduce your risk, and that's what this is all about. We're talking about risk reduction. I have a cell phone, but I only turn it on at certain times to check my messages, to check my answer, my recordings, any messages I have. I make sure to not put it in my pocket, to not put it on my beam, to not have it on me at any time. And this is very important, is to keep all of these wireless devices, and you just start one at a time, right? Is you try to reduce the wireless devices and those frequencies in your home at nighttime. Because at nighttime is when your melatonin is released, and that is when you get a good deep sleep. You can restore, and that melatonin is actually going out there and it's destroying those free radicals that your body has been making throughout the day. But if you have a wireless device like your Alexa or your cell phone or your little Apple Watch next to you, you're not producing the melatonin. And you're doing that to the children, I can't tell you what you're doing. So start simple. Turn your modem off at nighttime. And then once you get to that point, then you actually can turn the modem off good for good, plug in a good old-fashioned Ethernet, a little blue cord you used to have to your computer, plug it into your laptop, right? Make sure you remove all wireless devices around you. Get rid of your smart meter. And one of the biggest things is your good old-fashioned cordless phone is one of the worst of all. Get rid of the cordless phone and go back to a good old-fashioned plugged-in phone. And lastly, I would say is just educate yourself. Go out there. There's thousands of peer-reviewed studies, hundreds of different websites. And if anybody tells you that microwave frequencies and 5G is safe, you have to understand that you're literally being lied to. And this is the industry's way of war gaming you. It's serious. Any questions? Yeah. Billy. Airplane mode is okay, but even then, airplane mode, even when your phone is off, it can turn on automatically and then start doing updates, by the way, so it's not 100%. There are actually devices out there that you can put into. There's even like Mylar. There's a type of kind of aluminum foil. You use it on your insulation in your homes. You can actually make a little pocket out of that and put your phone into that. But you... And just to let you know, and we're going to put it on YouTube, I'm trying to upload it. We were in an area where there's no other wireless devices anywhere near us. We were in a cabin out in the woods, and we YouTube this. I have my EMF reader, an acoustimeter. I said, okay, let's test the microwave. So we turned that microwave on, and it went all the way to the red range, as high as it could go, like you're standing under a big old cell antenna, right? And I backed away from that microwave oven with the door closed 100 feet outside of the house, and it was still in a dangerous reading. A microwave oven 100 feet outside of the house. So folks, educate yourself. Time is of the essence. Was it turned on, and then I yelled to the person in the house, turn it off. She turned it off, and it dropped right down again. Wow. This is of paramount importance. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you. You're welcome.
So, and again, we've had Renette on the show several times. She's very much on the pulse of all of these various issues. So we're going to invite up Dr. Michelle Pero. I know you might need a second. So again, last year I attended the Roundup rally that happened at the state capitol. And on the panel, there were 3 people. One was Dr. Michelle Pero, who just wrote a book, What's Making Our Children Sick. Another gentleman who works with livestock, and another gentleman, and it was very informative, and I couldn't believe, based on the small attendance alone, that there there was such a small turnout for such an important issue. So she does a lot of things, but again, today we're here. I know we deviated a little bit with the 5G, but we're going to start to see the relationships of these things that are happening with Wi-Fi, with microwave, what's happening with aerosol spraying and geoengineering, and what's happening with the acidification of our soil and of our environment. These things are definitely related, and they're also related to the tree die-offs and to the increase of wildfires. So we're going to see how all of these things are deeply interconnected, and we'll continue to look into that in the future. But she came a long way to be here. A nice round of applause for Dr. Michelle Pero.
So thank you, Michael. Thank you, Golden Road. Thank you, The Source. I hobbled all the way over here thanks to my daughter, Angie, for dragging me out from Marin County. And I think it's important, injury and all, I wasn't taken out by Monsanto. This was another type of injury. It's important that I show up because I resonate with just about what you all are saying. I resonate with that, and that's why I'm here to kind of bring this all together. And what I've learned after doing over 45 talks since that book came out a year ago was that it's not how many of us shows up, it's who shows up. And don't underestimate the value of what 1, 2, or 3 committed people can do, especially when you activate the mama bear. It's my secret weapon. Usually the goal of my medical practice is to piss off as many women as I possibly can, and the effects are phenomenal. So there is so many. I came to talk about something today, but hearing everyone speak, I thought I would try to maybe tie it all in. What I'm hearing people speak about, glyphosate in your ditches. I didn't know that was an issue. The copper issue, health-wise, very significant. Glyphosate, Roundup, GMOs, glyphosate, Roundup, a big issue. And certainly what you just heard about 5G, I've been alarmed myself about 5G. There are tremendous parallels between what happened with GMOs and 5G, especially in terms of industry lies, just outright collusion, lies, and orchestrated attempts by, not attempts, successful maneuvers by industry, how to bamboozle us. It's just quite incredible. So I thought I would talk about children. I've been a pediatrician for almost 4 decades, and I'll try if I can just touch upon the different points that you all heard today regarding our kids' health, because our children are not faring that well. I'll throw out a few statistics because I'm an MD. I love stats, and people seem to believe me more when I talk about statistics, especially you science folks out there who don't want to hear me talk about homeopathy, for example, one of my other passions. So I won't talk about homeopathy. I'll talk about stats. So we now have an issue where 1 out of 2 kids has a chronic disease, so that you know. So when you go into a classroom now, half the kids are going to need IEPs and have special ed. And I can tell you, most of my friends have kids who have issues, et cetera, et cetera. And this is not without an environmental link. Let's be clear. 2. Right, 51% of American children now has a chronic disease. And for those of you who don't know, what a chronic disease means is a disorder that's been around for more than 3 months and is not curable, but curable by allopathic or Western medicine. For those of us who are integrative practitioners, my colleague and friend Dr. Lewis here, we do have other ways to heal chronic diseases, but I'm just going to stick to what's reported in what we call Western medicine or allopathic medicine. And those diseases span the spectrum. It's across all boards of health issues, from obesity, 1 out of 3 kids, asthma, 1 out of 6, and 1 out of every 8, autistic spectrum disorder, 1 out of 34 boys, 1 out of 58 kids, which has gone up since I even wrote the book that came out a year ago. Neurocognitive disorders, sleep issues, 2 out of 3 kids can't sleep. They have dysomnias under the age of 10. And those are my favorite disorders because people are very motivated to make changes when their kids don't sleep. I just pray everyone's kids can't sleep. Having a kid up all night, oh, you'll change something. So these are the kind of things we're seeing. And I don't want to leave that mental health issue, because in Western medicine, we cut off the head from the rest of the body as if that's a separate disorder. Mental health issues like depression, anxiety, OCD, eating disorders, etc., are also sky high. About half of teens report those health issues, 46%. So you see, I think, did I lay the case that we have an issue among our children? And this is not just our children, it's our dogs. 1 out of 1.6 dogs will now develop cancer. The most common cancer is non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. My own last dog died of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and the reason why you and I know why that is, because that is the leading tumor associated with Roundup. And Mr. Dwayne Johnson, our hero, unfortunately has a very aggressive form of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And since Mr. Johnson's case came up, there's been about 9,000 lawsuits filed against Monsanto, now Bayer. So this is changing. So anyway, I can go on and on, but I don't want to talk so much about, I think you all get the picture that our kids have some issues, right? Our dogs, the wildlife, the bees, we're in the web. I don't need to preach that to this crowd. I think we all get it here. So we got a health issue. So how did I get into this? I got into this as an unwilling activist. I am not an activist by nature. I'm just a feisty New Yorker. I'm just a sassy pediatrician. But I was roped in by one of my moms, a parent from my old practice, and these gals in a kitchen in Marin County were stopping the spray against the light brown apple moth that was going to take place along the entire coast of Northern California around 2006. And one county got sprayed, Monterey. And these gals stopped the spray. And I say these gals, and it wasn't me. I just kind of sat around and drank organic coffee. They were amazing cooks. I ate really well. And so, but during that time, they said they stopped the spray, and I just kind of went along for the ride. And they said, Michelle, what do you think about GMOs? And I didn't really have a thought about GMOs. I'm embarrassed to think about that now. GMOs have been around since 1996. I didn't know a damn thing about them, and I said, I'm not thinking much. And one of the moms, Lisa, pointed me to Jeffrey Smith's book, and I read Seeds of Deception. And that's what opened my eyes into the journey of relating to this plethora of chronic disease in our children and understanding the link between chronic disease in kids and the effects of GMOs and their associated pesticides, which are glyphosate-based herbicides. You don't eat a GMO alone without its associated herbicide and effect on our kids' health. So I want to go into a little bit about what these things do and the effect on our health and how that ties into this water issue, because I really want to keep it germane to what the topic of this show is the contamination of the water and what's happening here, not just here. Oh my gosh, so many counties now in California. So glyphosate, which is this ubiquitous, very simple glycine-containing molecule. When you look at the chemical structure, it's like, you've got to be kidding. This little thing does all this damage? Yes, indeed. It's very physiologic looking. It contains glycine, N-phosphoenolmethylglycine. I know more about this molecule than I know about things that I really should be studying, but I know a lot about glyphosate. And what this incredible molecule does is, well, number one, it's an antibiotic. And Monsanto, Bayer, patented as an antibiotic in 2010 as an antiprotozoal patent. And when I read the patent, because I have a tight sphincter, and I went back and looked at that patent, I said, what the hell does this stuff do? What it does is not only kill off protozoa, but Monsanto touted it as an antibiotic against strep, staph, every pathogen, even malaria. Every pathogen you can possibly think of was going to be helped by glyphosate as an antibiotic. So you would think, based on that we would have studied the effect of glyphosate on the human microbiome. That is the collection of organisms that make up your gut. Your gut is made up of bacteria, viruses, and yeast, and they work in a community called the microbiome, the mycobiome, and the virome. And it's a very complex interaction because, in fact, we are mostly microbial in origin, anywhere from 1:1 to 10:1. It just depends on the individual. You want a big, robust community of microbes in your gut because they are the basis for your health. Do not underestimate the value of microbiome. Love your gut bacteria. So this glyphosate, no studies, no human studies on the effect of microbiome, but one may be coming out Our friend here in the audience may know a little bit about that, but that literature is going to be emerging very shortly. It's being studied and it's going to be published pretty soon. So, and the results are showing that yes, indeed, glyphosate affects the human microbiome, and Roundup makes it even worse. Understand that glyphosate is bad, Roundup is worse. So we all clear on that. No, good question. I didn't even plant you in the audience. So glyphosate and no, they're not the same. So glyphosate is the main ingredient in over 700 formulations, Roundup being the most popular. What every company does, whether it's Bayer, Monsanto, Syngenta, Dow, they add inerts. Now, notice I put my little fingers waving in the air. Those inert are not so inert. For example, in Roundup has something called POEA, and what that is a surfactant, and surfactants break down fat. And where you have fat is in your nerve cells, for example, and cell membranes, your mitochondria and the cells. So what those surfactants do is break down the cell membrane so the glyphosate can enter the cell and make it yet more toxic. So Roundup has been shown to be way more toxic than glyphosate alone. Most of that work came out of France by Dr. Gilles-Eric Seralini, and boy, he was raked over the coals, but emerged triumphant. He's one of the biggest proponents that Roundup is way more toxic than glyphosate. But be clear, glyphosate in itself is not benign. So number one, it's an antibiotic. Number two, it's a metal chelator. That means chelation means it binds minerals like copper, zinc, magnesium, chromium, and all those cobalt, all those essential minerals that you have in your body. And the way that this was discovered is when glyphosate was first brought into the market in the 70s. It was invented in 1950, by the way, by a Japanese researcher. It's been around forever. Is that they use it as a metal cleaner. The Stauffer company used it as a metal cleaner. And they saw the weeds were dying around where they were cleaning these heavy metals. So they realized that not only is it a heavy metal cleaner, but it's an herbicide. And that's how they started. So it binds. We don't have any human studies on how it binds in humans. We have in cows. We have no human studies of the effect of GMOs and pesticides in humans. We have 2 studies on Bt toxin in humans, 2. And Bt is a form of genetic modification using bacteria. And so that's what we're eating, just aside. So it's a metal chelator. What am I seeing clinically in kids? Is this relevant? Well, it's relevant to your copper issue. I hear folks out here talking about copper. Yes, it is relevant. So when I see children, they're mineral deficient. They look clinically mineral deficient. They have these little white lines on their nails, these little horizontal lines. They have ridging on the sides of their tongues. They have coarse, dry hair. Clinically, you can look at kids and see that they're sick. You don't have to even have a laboratory. It's called physical exam. Oh, wow, that's crazy. You actually examine a child, and you see that they don't look well. So what we do is when you check them and you do some lab work, because men want to see data, so I show the dads the numbers are low. These kids, you cannot operate your brain without magnesium and zinc. And kids are low. When you restore their nutrients, they get better. Amazing. Clinical medicine. It's amazing. That's using minerals, okay? Our children are deficient, the dogs are deficient, the soil's deficient. We're all related. So this is the other thing that's going on. Copper, just so you know, because I hear so much talk about copper, I didn't plan to come talk about heavy metals because we do need some copper to run our bodies. But copper is in a very nice relationship with zinc. So when you have too much copper, it drives down your zinc. And you need zinc to run about 250 reactions in your brain. And so if you have a kid who's zinc deficient, you better look for mental health issues. So when you have kids who can't focus, who have depression, who have anxiety, why don't you check their mineral levels? And we've known this for over 100 years. It's called orthomolecular medicine. Dr. Abraham Hoffer in the 1930s studied this, and it's a big field of medicine that most pharmaceutical-based medicine will not want you to know, because minerals are not patented, they're cheap to treat. 1 bottle of minerals will cost you about $8, last you about 2 months, right? You know, I won't go down that road. You don't want to take me down that road. No, this is not conspiracy theory, that's just reality.
Is there a way people can get their minerals tested?
Ooh, indeed they can. I think after I speak, I'm going to let Dr. Lou talk about it, because she is a freaking master with the OligoScan. Oh my gosh, she did mine. Not pretty. Thank you, Dr. Liu. I'm a work in progress. I'm always working on my own health. But yes, we work on this together. A couple more things that glyphosate will do, and then I'll move on. It blocks one of the key detoxification pathways in your body called the cytochrome P450 system. So we can't detox. Our kids are toxic. They can't detox. They already have diminished detoxification. And GMOs also reduce their ability to detox by reducing something called glutathione, the master antioxidant in their bodies. Separate research, separate stuff. I don't want to go into the GMO pathway. I want to stick to glyphosate and Roundup because I think that's really relevant right now to your show, what you folks are doing and what we really need to focus on. You heard about the carcinogenic issue. It was labeled by the World Health Organization as a class 2A carcinogen. It would have, which means probable, it would have been an absolute carcinogen except they didn't study it in humans, just animals and rats. And that's why it's a 2A and not a class 1 carcinogen. If they had done the human studies, they would have shown that it was also a carcinogen in humans as well. I just wrote a paper, The Effect of Pesticides on the Microbiome and the Link to Childhood Leukemia. It's going to be out on my website, www.gmoscience.org, and you're not going to find this anywhere else. We referenced over 25 articles in that. We publish twice a month, my little brilliant group and myself, bringing out the best literature on pesticides, GMOs, and the effect on health. And we are totally underfunded volunteers. We're a lot like your group, Michael. We don't get a lot of money, and we're on a shoestring budget, but we have some of the best people in this field working on this topic. You're not going to find the effects of GMOs and pesticides on health just about anywhere. And this is a travesty. Other things that glyphosate does, as if that's not enough, and this is based on the work of Dr. Samsel and Dr. Seneff, and they've taken some heat too, is that glycine, which is one of the major components of collagen, which makes up your musculoskeletal system, swaps out with the glyphosate. So you may be having a substitution of glycine in your collagen with glyphosate. And the reason why that's a problem is it can cause musculoskeletal issues. And when you examine children today, they're doughy. Have you felt a kid recently? Go feel a kid. And they are absolutely doughy. Their musculoskeletal system doesn't feel robust. And so this is something I've wondered about. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. Where's the data? I'm just going a lot on anecdote, and I'm honest about that. I say when I know something, I say when there's science to back it up, and I say when this is just clinical and anecdotal. But after doing this now for 12 years, I've been on this road. I have over 5,000 anecdotes. How many anecdotes do you actually want? 20,000, 50,000 anecdotes. I have a lot of anecdotes. So I see something once, I see it twice, I see it 3 times, and I know I'm onto something. And this is called clinical acumen. It's called clinical experience. So that's what the problem with the glyphosate is. And you heard a little bit about copper and the zinc balance that I'm concerned about in your environment. And the last thing I want to touch off is regulators only measure high doses of glyphosate. And we now know that dose does not make the poison, that you have an inverse curve at the bottom of very low levels of glyphosate. Actually, the best study I saw was on Roundup. So it kind of goes like this. There's a curve, right? X, Y. My daughter would be so proud. I remember those linear graphs. But look, going right up, more glyphosate, more toxicity. Let's use Roundup, more toxicity. But at the very bottom, there's an inverse U where there's toxicity at very low doses. And those are doses where parts per billion, where your endocrine system work. And Michael Antoniou and his group out of King's College in London showed that 2 parts per billion of Roundup, that is way lower than anything we're eating, caused, not correlated, caused something called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease in adults, in rats. Now, we happen to have an epidemic now of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease in adults. 1 out of 4 people, according to the American Liver Association, has non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. They're blaming it on the fructose because we're all eating this high fructose corn syrup. But is it the fructose or what the fructose comes from? It comes from corn. Corn is genetically modified and it is sprayed. You do not eat corn that's not organic that's not been genetically modified. About 96% of corn now that's not organic in the U.S. is genetically modified. So if it's not organic, it's genetically modified. So this liver issue is silent. And it goes on to develop non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, which then goes on to cirrhosis. Kids have it too, especially obese children. And they already have the NASH, the non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, which is the more advanced form. It was out of an Italian study. We get a lot of our information out of Europe because Americans are not allowed to research a lot of these issues here because science and universities are owned by big agribusiness. You were talking about Bill Gates before? They own Cornell. Now they're getting into Harvard. Purdue owned. Davis owned. These are owned. They cannot produce research that doesn't align itself with the big agribusiness that's funding them. You don't bite the hand that feeds you. So their research gets shut down. Scientists have been, we are silenced. If you want to watch a good video, we produced a video about this on our website. Feel free to take it and use it. And it links what we find to tobacco industry. Now, I could probably go on for about 3 hours, but I'll just zip it up here and allow for questions.
Great.
And so we can sort of wrap this up because, you know, I get wound up. I get very excited. I'm very passionate about this topic. So let's take some questions. Yes.
Well, what you're saying is fascinating, and I'd like to know more details about your video and how I could actually maybe get involved in the fight with the right groups, possibly.
Woohoo!
Do you have
yeah.
You know, I'd like to know your website and all that information.
Absolutely. Would love to give it out.
Good.
Yeah. So
before I leave.
Well, before we leave, we'll get you that information. Maybe Michael can put it on this, The Source. Thank you. Thank you. And if you go to our website, www.gmoscience.org, we have a section called videos, and we produce this video, and it's a great video. It's a great teaching tool. And I'll give you that information again, and you can get it from The Source and off our website.
So one of the things that really impressed me when I was at the state capitol meeting is with all of you, you actually showed a chart with Bayer, Monsanto, AstraZeneca, and how this closed loop of economic benefit is really self-explanatory. Could you just talk about that for a minute, where it goes to the livestock and the agriculture and people and the pharmaceutical companies?
Well, and I have to give credit where credit's due. That beautiful chart was from my dear friend Howard Vlieger, student of the soil, who's a farmer, an organic farmer for decades, who's been on this battle even, before most of us even knew what glyphosate was. And so the way that Howard does it, and he does this brilliantly, and he walks the walk. Mr. Vlieger walks the walk. And what he shows is basically from the beginning of the curve, starting with, our food source all the way around, that companies like AstraZeneca are making money at both ends. The AstraZeneca produces pesticides. They also produce the drugs for breast cancer, right? So, and basically, so what Howard does, and he shows you, and if anybody wants that slide, you reach out to me and I will get you that slide from Howard. He will comply, and we can put it on your website. Oh, my God. Technology. Praise Jesus, hallelujah. I love it. I'm also, I am a Luddite, but I've learned to embrace technology. Like my 5G colleague there, whose name I can't remember. Thank you. And that's basically what it's showing, this web of how it's all bought in from the beginning to the end. And it's a web, and all these links to the web of how this is produced. And the big agribusiness are making money at both ends. So, and when we're sick, they make money to keep us sick. Yeah. It's a kind of a dystopian kind of thought. And as a pediatrician, I don't like to think that way. We're supposed to be like the happy doctors, right? But this is how we need to think. Any other questions that I can answer for you? Can I talk about the microbiome project? Yes, please. Please.
So my name is Joni Blackster, and full disclosure, I'm the national sales manager for a company called Just Thrive. And the study that Michelle was referring to earlier is a study conducted by the research microbiologist behind Just Thrive. His name is Kiran Krishnan. And what it's not, what we now have is technology that reproduces in what is called a gut model study. It reproduces the conditions in a human microbiome. Because when you're testing substances like glyphosate and Roundup, you obviously, it's not moral and ethical to test it on real people. So they took 3 gut model studies. They calibrated them to represent the gut microbiome of a 3-year-old. And I asked the microbiologist why, and he said because the conditions are actually very different in a young child's microbiome than an adult. And one of those gut models was the control. The second, number 2, they dumped glyphosate, just straight glyphosate into it, and measured the effect on the gut microbiome. In the third, they added Roundup, measured the effect on the bacteria population in the gut microbiome. Then what they did was they added the proprietary formula of licensed strains, spore bacteria. These are a new concept to us. The spore bacteria to each one of the gut models and measured the effect. We already know from a human clinical trial that these particular strains created a 42% reduction in the toxins that are produced by pathogens in the gut, and that happened at only 1 cap a day in 30 days with no changes in diet or lifestyle. So we are expecting to definitely see some significant results from the study. If people are interested in learning more about it, because it's still in process for being peer-reviewed, analyzed, and it will eventually be published. Once that happens, those results will be listed on the Just Thrive website, which is thriveprobiotic.com. If people have any other questions about that, I am going to be in a lot of interaction with the microbiologist in the next couple of months, and I'm going to be completely picking his brain about it. You're more than welcome to call me or email me. My phone number is area code 831-246-0162. And my email address is Joanie, Joanie, Blackster, BLAXTER, .rep@gmail. So this is probably the most exciting thing that I have ever been able to be personally involved with. So I'm happy to talk about it with anyone. And Michelle is in a few days, I believe, in less than a week, going to be in a phone conversation with the microbiologist about the results we have so far.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think I'll wrap up with a couple things that you can do on a positive note, because Michael, I really like what you're saying here is Dr. Doom and Gloom, no thanks. Let's be part of the solution, because this stuff can be pretty depressing. So 1, eat organic. I think everybody gets that. 2, you need to give your gut a plentiful of bacteria, certainly either in the form of probiotics, spore biotics, fermented food, and or all of that. Fermented food does work. And even I'm no Martha Stewart, even I had my hand at fermenting, and I actually did okay. So yes, ferment. That's what I tell people to do. I do tell people get a water filter, and I do tell people to take the shoes off at the door, even though my house, I can't get people to do it except me, and then I walk barefoot on all their crap. But the reason why that's so important is because the most toxic thing in your house is your house dust. That's right. The biggest source is pollution and house dust. And house dust has been shown to have high levels of tons of toxins and toxicants. And so just by taking your shoes off, you reduce the toxic load for yourself, children, and your pets. And having had 3 dogs now with cancer, I'm very sensitive to this issue, but this is indeed true. So those are kind of simple things that you can do at home. I used to tell people, put your money where your mouth is and just shop organic. That was enough, but that is not enough anymore. And so we all have to be part of the regenerative movement, and I think we all have to take a stand and do something, no matter what it is. Thank you.
Such a treasure.
Thank you, Michael.
You guys pissed off a little bit? Yeah. Are you inspired a lot? There's hope.
Hi, I'm Carmen, And I just wanted to remind people that 4 out of the Monsanto 8 that were arrested on October 15th at Monsanto Woodland for protesting. Our arraignment is coming up on the 22nd of this month. So please give us all the support that you can. Thank you.
Great. All right, so we have one last speaker. I know we've gone a few minutes longer. We are going to have some food after this. That's a time where we generally like to break bread and actually kind of let the rubber hit the road, per se. I know some people had to leave, so it's a little frustrating for me sometimes to have so many amazing people here and trying to connect the dots. But one of the reasons that we spent hundreds of hours with the programming to develop the technology and the network, everything you hear, all the keynote speakers are all platinumized and they all have access, and hopefully we're asking them, even if it's just once a week, post your events, post this information. Let's create an alternative media source and information source outside of the corporate media who has their own agendas. So lastly, I'm going to introduce our last speaker. And again, thank you for coming. Thank you for supporting. Again, I want to thank Tara Kelly and Jim Heck, who have been working in the back room to help actually make this broadcast available live on NCTV and on Facebook and on YouTube. So I want to thank them for the work that they do. They'd probably rather be home today and enjoying their family and relaxing, but they're here in support. But I want to introduce, we met a couple months ago and has been a real dynamo and a force of conversation and communication. And I'd like a nice round of applause for Dr. Shan Hung Lu, a doctor of internal medicine. Did I do it right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So welcome.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, everyone, for staying. I hope this information can be passed out to all your physicians. I'm an internist, so I actually grew up in China. And recently, I went back to China because there's a huge brain health issue in the 1.4 billion people country. In China, medicine is not a business. Medicine is an expense. The government pays for everything. So when they start seeing the increase of autism, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's, and chronic disease, is they become very concerned that the country cannot pay for it. So that's one thing that I feel really inspired when I come back, is we have to make an economic issue. So one of the big things is I come home and I found, how can we work together? As a physician, if we are dealing with crisis management, today's physicians have 15 minutes with their patient. Many of them are burned out. Neurologists has the highest burned out rate in this country. And pediatrician, gynecologists, primary care physicians are dealing with crisis management medicine. They're being paid very little, lots of bureaucratic paperwork. So my goal is, when I learned about glyphosate, it's a very slow process. It's like I feel really ashamed about this. And because many patients are brought up this issue and why I didn't have time to look at it. So this year, I actually put my practice aside and doing the National Detox Project. The project is really encouraging conventional medicine doctors. We're reaching out to doctors and just have them test their patient for the toxic chemical load. Okay, glyphosate right now is very easily tested by several companies. The Detox Project, $78. They send you a kit. You can test your water, your own urine, your animals, your kids. And then the Great Plains Lab is the one we actually monitor not only glyphosate, but also 172 chemicals. And it's urine test. You can directly contact them. All practitioners, licensed acupuncturists, wellness coach can have a account with them and open up and start testing people. I think one of the biggest challenge is people don't make their symptoms correlating to the toxins, right? The toxins is invisible. So my goal is to make it visible. Once you make it visible, you can Google, like, what is this thing I'm having, right? I recently discovered I have very high level of styrene and perchlorate. So when I start looking, they're contaminating the water resources, and styrene is from new cars, new furnitures. So things like you can start making it visible and then start to deal with it, right? I think my biggest challenge with glyphosate is it is such a, like a big issue, but why my neighbor is still spraying it? I think one of the things about the public education is they don't make the connection. When I say if you're tired, if you're gaining weight, if you're losing hair, if your children are sick, test it. And then they will ask, where is the glyphosate come from, right? So I think one of the things, I'm really trying to make the physician, make the measurement. And what's really, really enlightening is today I actually met a neurologist. I've been trying to reach out these conventional neurologists is to encourage them to start testing. And he was actually very excited to be part of this. So I think if we reach out to conventional medicine doctors, they are the ones seeing 30 patients a day. If they start testing those people and teach them, they will start massively educating people instead of we, the health nuts, doing a little community meeting. So I think that's my hope, is to educating conventional medicine doctors to do something simple and start making changes in their lives and also in their patients' lives. So thank you very much, and I hope this little brief solution is inspiring. I'm looking forward to working with, conventional medicine doctors that are tired of treating disease and they're burned out. They're tired and sick of doing paperwork that's meaningless in patient care. So thank you so much. Thank you, Mike, for doing this.
So on that, since we are solution-based, I always get a little depressed, but I always get really inspired by doing these monthly public forums. And again, this is purely done on a volunteer basis. So if and when you leave, if you'd like to make a donation just to help cover the general production expense, we appreciate it. It's not expected. Actually, I'm pouring the majority of my time and resources actually into doing these monthly forums now, and trying to really get the source directory as a source for this entire bioregion of the Sacramento River watershed, which is Siskiyou County, Shasta County, Butte County, Nevada County, including Truckee, Calaveras, Amador, and Sacramento County. 8 counties to at least start building bridges and communicating and working together and centralize our calendars. I just went to the Nevada County Progressives meeting. There was 5 people there, all doing events in the same day, all doing great work, but they're saying, well, we need a way to reach people. So being a production person by trade, working with media, being a broadcaster at KVMR, also partnering with KFOI Radio in Redding, also partnering with KZFR in Chico, partnering with the Mount Shasta Herald. And now, excitingly, I have access to 4 newspapers with a combined readership of 430,000 people that are now asking for weekly resilience articles. So I cannot do this all alone, as none of us can do our pieces alone. We have to build these bridges. But what I'm proposing and committed to doing over the last few years, and specifically telegraphing today, is that we now have ways so we can take your messaging, we can reach people. This is what my specialty and strength is. We can use the source, we can get your videos up, we can put content into several newspapers, also the Lotus Guide magazine. Every month they give me the back page, $1,000 spot in the magazine to print articles about resilience. So we have a huge audienceship that we can reach. So it's not just, like you said, maybe a few health nuts in the room. We're broadcasting. We can go out now with 5 cameras, do mobile broadcasting. And even more importantly, I'm really excited because as of a month ago, I was a judge at the Eugene, Oregon Environmental Film Festival. I met with the director of the event, Michelle Eggers-Barrison, who is a PhD in environmental justice, and we are partnering to do the first international film festival on community resilience, completely focused on solution-based ideas and science for a world struggling in the face of power. We're doing it Earth Day weekend here in Nevada City. We already have the Nevada Theater booked. We have a lot of film festivals here, so it's a great place to do it. We're going to be doing that Earth Day weekend. So you can now go on Film Freeway. They had over 200 films apply for the Oregon Environmental Film Festival. And of course, environmentalism is one piece of this resilience picture. We're doing that in April, culminating all of these monthly forums. So I'll give more information about that. Again, on the source, trying to make it easy. And really excited because after my meeting in Mount Shasta with the members of the Weed City Council who lost the water rights to Crystal Geyser for their own water for the city because of the paper mill, right? And I met with the watershed councils from several watershed councils and having a lot of the same issues. What we're doing is right now in September, just like they had the Dakota Access Pipeline, they had a national and international call for water protectors. We are doing a call out for people in California or around the country or the world to come to the state capitol in September for a water protectors rally to bring to light all of the issues of what's happening with the herbicides, the pesticides, what's happening with the commercialization of our community's water, the potential of the depleting of the Sacramento River watershed by 20 to 30% just because of the plastic bottling plant that's going in, because of the increase of the coal trains that are now dumping exposed coal into parking lots and shipping areas along the East Bay. So we're absolutely doing a national call for water protectors, and we're trying to get people aware of the issues and upset enough or concerned enough to actually show up and start making some real changes. So it's really coming from every angle, from the community, from the citizens, from the nonprofit organizations, trying to inspire local government to do the right thing. But as we always know it takes some level of political pressure to really get the bureaucrats to make the right decisions, because there's a lot of lobbying money behind that, and there's a lot of things happening behind closed doors. So on that, we have some food available. We can break bread. We can meet each other. Again, I'm going to reach out to, we have now 30 people that are platinumized so they can be submitting great content to the source. And another great piece is we started this thing called the Alliance for Resilient Communities as this organization. We're posting emergency preparedness plans for Nevada County. We're putting a lot of information up there. But we realize now we probably have assembled the greatest team of superheroes that is unprecedented alliance and collaboration of people. I call these our advisory board, but these are people who specialize in holistic medicine. They specialize in emergency preparedness. They specialize in food and water security. So I'm predicting that we're on the verge of having a world-class team of people who can actually consult on these issues. And this is another area where I'm completely putting 100% of my effort to get people into colleges and into schools, speaking with people, and actually, besides doing just the public forums, which I think we should have hundreds of people here, not 20 or so people, even though we're broadcasting, but to actually go out. And our first project that we're doing, like I said, I'm meeting with Deb Lucera from the Board of Supervisors from Butte County to talk about the remediation efforts in Paradise and dealing with the fire and the amount of toxins that are there and how to deal with some of those issues. So this is real world application. This is rubber hitting the road. It's not just information overload, it's activism. And I also want to, before I finish, thank a person who has really inspired me to get back into my activism work after taking her practical permaculture class. And becoming a certified permaculture designer. I want to thank Kathy Fish, who's also here today, and does so much for our community.
Can I just say one thing?
Yep.
If anybody has marketing skills, Michael really needs help with marketing. There'd be more people here if he didn't have the burden with all he's doing of having to do the marketing part. There's got to be someone that wants to help, because this is good stuff. So if anybody knows a marketing type person, please have them contact Michael.
Yeah. And we do meet every Monday. Billy Bensing, Jeanette, Piety, and others do attend Monday meetings just to strategize. Hey, what can we do? We're even talking about posting people in front of Briar Patch. Hey, do you know what's in your water? Hey, do you know what a GMO? Simple little health-related things to help activate the community. So again, thank you, Kathy, for that. This is a lot of work, but you know what? To tell you the truth, this is it's red alert on planet Earth. This is an absolute priority. And not to be an alarmist, but to be a realist, awakening from my own cognitive disconnect from all the things that are happening and realizing what's happening. We're not asking you guys to do 100%, but just find 1%, 5% of your time and what you can do to help make a difference. So again, thank you NCTV, thank you KVMR Radio, and thank you all of the public access stations that rebroadcast these broadcasts. And thank you again, Tara Kelly, you'll see them in a minute, Jim Heck. And I want to thank Billy Bensing to bring the music, to bring the positive, creative, spirited nature that I know inspires us all. And again, thank you all of you for showing up and all the keynote speakers. And have a great day. This will be available on Golden Road YouTube, on Facebook. You can share it. Everybody's excerpts are available for them. And again, just thank you for helping to show up and make a difference. Give yourself a nice round of applause. And we'll see you next month.